Hello and good evening, everyone. This is the committee meeting of Health, Environmental, Aging, and Disabilities Committee. This meeting is now called to order. On January 22nd, 2025, I am the chair, Councilmember Kobe J. Owens from the 1st District. At this time, I will call the roll of the committee members first. Councilman Owens, here. Councilwoman Will Holler.
Here.
Here. Councilwoman Maria Cabrera. Councilmember Nathan Field.
Present.
Here. Councilman Alec Tackett.
Here.
Councilman Chris Johnson. Council President Trippy Congo.
Here.
We do have a quorum. And as a friendly reminder, only members of the committee should be making motions and seconds. If there are any questions let's proceed to the agenda. Is there any questions before we get there? Seeing none, we can move forward. We will start with our first presentation on the Community Partner Support Unit, Assist and Impact Team with the Division of Social Services. You can take a seat right up here, and we will load your presentation.
Thank you, sir. Sir Bivins.
Yes. How we doing?
It is good to have y'all here, and there you go. It is now up. Just let us know when you need us to go to the next slide, and whenever you're ready, we can get started.
Okay. Oh, I gotta sit down and do this?
You can stand up if you would like.
No, I can stand up like right here.
No, you would have to
I gotta stand up right there? Okay,
Yes.
all right, because I'm used to walking and talking doing presentations.
We just need you to speak into the mic.
So before we jump into the slide, we just want to introduce ourselves. I'm Gatefred Bivins. I'm the 3rd Social Service Senior Administrator for Division of Social Services. I oversee CPSU, which is Community Partner Support Unit, Impact and Assist Team. I also have my colleague here.
Oh, good afternoon. My name is Dwayne Hartwig. I'm a Master Family Service Specialist for CPSU, and I work over at the Hudson Building in Porter State Service Center.
Thank you. We can go to the next slide. This presentation is an introduction of what Community Partner Support Unit is. What do we do? We're considered a bridge between state service centers, community partners, and the community itself. Working as a collaborative between the division and our sister divisions as well under DHSS, Delaware Department of Health and Social Services. Next slide. So this adds into what we do. We provide case management, intensive case management. One of the functions we provide through Assist Team is we work with government agencies, local, state, federal, as well as community partners to assist them with gaining access to our Assist portal. This allows them to apply for Division of Social Service benefits as authorized users, track the status, do applications, renewals, etc. on that platform. And we go out to the community, train those organizations on how to use that platform. Next slide. With our benefits and programs, our main focus is our DSS programs, which are our SNAP, which is food benefits, our Medicaid, also connected to long-term Medicaid. We have our cash assistance programs, general assistance, and TANF, which stands for temporary assistance for needy families. We have our child care, which is purchase of care benefit, and we also have our refugee cash assistance, which any Delawarean can come into a local state service center and apply for either benefit. Next slide. So with our outreach, a lot of our work is based off our relationship with our partners. We have over 340 partners throughout the state of Delaware from different areas, from mental health and substance abuse to food pantries to legal resources, employment and training, housing providers, literacy, financial literacy, etc. So we're basically a connecting factor. We provide direct referrals and resources to any of our clients that come into the building and need services. Next slide. Here are some logos of some of our main employment partners. We have over 150 employers we work directly with, getting our clients employed directly, right? Sending them to professionals for employment and training opportunities, to Department of Labor, or working with our partners such as Goodwill with helping them with resume building, applying for employment opportunities while understanding how to do so. So we work directly with 150 employers. Next slide. For our housing partnerships, there's various partnerships. I won't go through the entire list, but as you can see, it's wide in its range. You have nonprofit organizations such as Family Promise that assist with housing. You have your state entities such as housing authorities, Wilmington Housing Authority, Newcastle County Housing Authority, etc. And we also deal with private landlords as well as property management companies, connecting our clients to let them know where there's available housing, housing need, housing support, vouchers, etc., to help them get housed permanently stable in their current living conditions. Could go to the next slide.
Okay. So with the Community Partner Support Unit, we have TANF, the Bridge Program, and the Bridge Program basically help people that's applying, families that are applying for TANF, and help them bridge the barrier as far as finally getting employment. So CBSU has taken, with supporting TANF, eligible Delawareans with barriers, eliminating services, promoting self-sufficiency through employment and training skills. And I think the Bridge Program is usually for people in Newcastle County. Sussex County and King County got a different program. And we partnered with 12 division of DHSSS, the Bridge Program. Next slide. So we offer case management. We help with system clients with applying for benefits on the Assist website. And with the Assist website, if somebody in Sussex County apply on the Assist website, somebody in Newcastle could be working with them because it's on the website. And we just ask them we got a certain email address that the clients will put all their verifications to, and we make sure they get an interview. So we help with the food, cash, and also employment resources. Cause like when I'm there for my position, I had the authority to do the food benefits and cash assistance, and also by me being CPSU, I help with finding employment and training with the different agencies. That's helped cut out the middleman, because the people that actually doing the food benefits, they don't have the access to it. So I could do an intake and talk to them personally and say, listen, oh, wait a minute, I got to maybe hook you up with Goodwill. So we go to Goodwill or what's the Burlington Coat Factory. So easy access, because I go send them straight to them. Next slide. So we also have community partners, or Latin American Community, Latin American Community Center, also Western Neighborhood House. We do the Kingswood Community Center, and we also have a clothes closet where the clients could come out over in Claremont to get clothes, or we could get their sizes and what to wear, and we'll pick it up and take it to the client to make it easier for them in case they don't have transportation. Next. And we also have services in the libraries from Sussex County to Newcastle County. When the clients come in, we'll sit there and talk to them, help them do the worker web, assist app. We help them case manage them in case if they need food or anything. We take them to the food bank, as we have the program to help them get transportation to the food bank, because we also have transportation, CPSU transportation. They also take people to work. They take them to other things they have to do. and we help connect with other partners. And I think that's, oh, one more? Next. So community partner resource call, access to social service to promote sufficiency by providing ongoing support to organizations that serve those in need. Connect with local organizations to learn about current events and programs offered in the community. So we be having resource fairs. We try to do resource fairs once a month. I'll go to somebody that's offering a resource fair and set up a table with them. And just so we can also get information on how other organizations, services, resources can support initiative to help our clients. So we might have one person doing a certain thing, so we could connect the resource with them. Well, let's say, for instance, they need help with rent. Western Neighborhood House got $300 for them. We could send them to Salvation Army that might have the other $200 to have enough money for that bill. So for more information, you'll call the Community Partner Support Center. You'll call us. And next page. So where to contact, you can email community_partnership/support/unit@delaware.gov. For the bridge program, you email DHSS_DSSS_bridge reference@delaware.gov. And the for the clothing referrals, you just email CPSU. And I think that's it. Any questions?
Thank you so much. Is there any questions from members of the committee? Councilman Hackett.
What I will say is thank you so much for the presentation. It was definitely informative. The only question that I do have is, do y'all have data on how many people that you guys serve a year or even quarterly, especially in some of these different areas? Just wanted to see if y'all had that.
Yeah, so one of the things we do on a monthly basis is Division of Social Services posts our newsletter. With that newsletter, you can find data on, the numbers and different programs and services that we provide. It really depends on, the team and the expectation on our end. But that information is available on our monthly newsletter.
And does it break it down by, like, Wilmington's?
Yes, yeah. It will break it down by team, also location, and it'll also give you stats of our entire department of, how many food benefit applications we did, how many Medicaid, what does those numbers look like? So it's very detailed.
So if you want the newsletter, just email us and we can email it to you.
Perfect.
Thank you.
If you want it on a monthly basis, let us know and we can email it to you.
Thank you for the answer. Thank you, Chair.
You talked about some of the legal aid resources that y'all offer to individuals. Can you expand on that just a little bit more about what type of legal aid is offered?
Yeah, so we don't offer legal aid directly.
Okay.
And again, we express to our clients and community, we're a connecting factor. So with referrals, we have different partners that provide legal aid services.
Okay.
One of them is Classy, you're probably familiar with. We work directly with them via a contact person. So if a client has, issues with an eviction or something of that nature, they can call them, get a representative, and determine if they can get counsel. Sometimes they're able to directly defend that individual. Sometimes they would refer them out to an attorney who is in that realm of need.
Thank you for that. Councilwoman Will Heller.
Thank you very much for your presentation. That's all really valuable information. And I wanted to know, you mentioned that in your presentation that you work with a lot of different community-based organizations. And my question is if there's a community organization out there, how would they get in touch with you to invite you to come to their event, or maybe if they have a regular program like a food pantry or something like that? Are you still setting up new chances to connect with community organizations?
Yeah, that's a great question. So on the slide and on that presentation, there's an email, which is the community_partner_support_unit@delaware.gov. If they email that email mailbox, we'll be able to kind of respond and set up a meeting with them. One of the things we do is we want to kind of have a one-on-one meeting with new partners to get an idea of what services they bring to the community, how we can support them, right? And then if they're interested in becoming a master partner, which is a list of partners we communicate on a monthly basis with.
Weekly.
It's the monthly status. And then if they're interested in MOU partnership, which is getting access to that assist portal that we mentioned, being able to go into the community and help people directly apply for benefits versus them coming into a local state service center. So we offer either side of partnership, but yes, they would contact that email resource mailbox and just let us know they're interested in partnering and what they're able to add to the community.
Thank you very much. And Councilman Owens, can I have a follow-up question?
Yes, you can.
I just wanted to say that your presentation is also on the website. So if people want to download all of that information, they can download the presentation from the City Council events page and then have access to everything that you share.
Yes, they can do that. And we also have it on our page as well, our DHSS page. If you go on that website and you type CPSU, all of our information will pop up there as well, if they're looking to get connected with us.
Thank you for that. I do have another question about the job training and job placement. For the job training aspect of it, what type of skill training partners do you have to get people up to speed with the different jobs? I see you highlighted a few of them. I'm sure you have a lot others that you work with. And what is the most desirable field that individuals want to go into, and then what other fields that we can help try to look at how we can develop a new workforce for?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So a lot of our partnerships rely on positions becoming available, right? One of the great partners is Department of Labor. We work directly with their employment and training unit. And what they do is they offer different programs based off demographics, right? So if they're 65 and plus, right, and they need a certain type of job that's going to assist with their, capabilities, right? Or if they're, younger and they're looking for apprenticeship, they have different opportunities there. So we want to make sure we connect them with a program that fits for them, right? If they're looking for like immediate work, meaning like I want to start work tomorrow, right? It's not necessarily a career that I'm looking to build up, right? But we have direct partners like Amazon, right? UPS, Postal Service, Walmart, right? And we could send them directly there to our contact, help them with that application part, right? And then hope that they are able to complete the interview and get the job. We typically track, when they're coming in, how successful that rate is, right? Our clients that come and get service from us, they average about $17 to $20 an hour once into a position or career that they're looking for. What we're starting to see now and what we kind of advertise is, for those who are looking for skill sets, a lot of the, outside of just employment and training, but a lot of the, like HVAC, plumbing, electrician, some of those traits, labor type of skills are needed and can pay a higher amount. So, we work with different programs. I know Food Bank of Delaware, they have a program we work with where they do training to operate certain equipment, right? Mm-hmm. And you can see them get $30 an hour, higher rates that, can be life-changing.
And with the higher pay for the equipment operators, is there certifications that individuals have to go through? And if they don't necessarily have the resources to pay for that certification, is it usually on the job, or will the state help with that as well?
So there's different avenues for funding opportunities. It really depends on the training course. I know with the Department of Labor, they have avenues where they can cover the expense for it. But there's different, opportunities in that realm.
And also the Department of Labor do help with schooling also, but you got to see them early. you know, because, you know, each quarter they got money allocated, so you got to go there sooner than later and talk to them about money for school, funding for school. And I think it's more like a trade school. I don't think it's more as college. It's more a trade school.
Thank you. And then my next question was with housing partnerships. So you have a sensitive list here that you had up on the screen as well too, both market rate housing and affordable housing. The programs, what programs, if someone is dealing with someone who is unhoused and wants to help find them a safe place to lay their head at night that is warm, especially in this severe weather that we're having right now, who would be the best options that you know of, and then also who's worked best with the city so far?
So to answer your question, when we talk about our clients that are unsheltered, right? The term some may use is homelessness. We work directly with Housing Alliance of Delaware, right? HAD, in the case, which is Housing Alliance of Delaware, is a centralized organization that can take referrals for clients that need shelter placement. So what we do is something we call centralized intake, where we can send a referral directly to them versus them calling a number, which is 833, find a bed. Again, there's a waiting list for available shelter. It's limited shelter in Delaware. So we also seek alternatives for those clients. And some of those may be private shelter organizations. There's also our family support unit through the State Service Center. If they're eligible, going through a screening, determining what benefits they have with us, we're able to use some of that funding and get them into a temporary stay, which is like a hotel, motel voucher. But it's based off their eligibility. In the Hope Center. We also work directly with Hope Center. We're actually stationed there 2 days out of the week. So we're always sending referrals to them as well, dealing with Newcastle County for their supportive housing program they have there. It's a participant program, so again, you have to participate in their, their day-to-day routines. Yeah. But, for the right family, for the right individual, if they're willing to, participate, then yes. But we do use various organizations that do provide that temporary housing stay, Westside Neighborhood House, Sojourners Place. I can go on and on of how many, available housing units there is. But the idea is to get them temporarily housed, right, through rapid rehousing, and then work with them on trying to find that permanent housing solution.
Thank you for that. And if you had to estimate about how short are we here in Wilmington for beds to be provided to get people off the streets?
So I would say I don't want to quote numbers, right, but you can go to Housing Alliance Delaware's website, and you can actually see through the continuous care, which I'm a representative of for the Housing and Advocacy Committee. We make sure that we track data and information and flow from a year-to-year basis to actually see how many calls come in versus how many people are placed and how many available beds are. So if you want that information, you can go to Housing Alliance Delaware website and be able to see the quarter as well as the year-to-date numbers and statistics for that.
And is there any special dedicated housing for the unhoused for veterans?
Yes, you got a couple different programs for veterans. We work directly with the VA. We also have opportunities where veterans can get a voucher that they qualify for to get housed, right? It's just a means of finding landlords as well as leasing property management companies to accept those vouchers. Okay. But there are opportunities there for the veterans. One of the things that we are doing now actively is we have warming stations at 8 different state service centers this week. Due to the cold temperatures, we're working with Cold Purple, where they'll supply shelter. And we're also working with our family support unit to determine if they're eligible to get placed. We also brought in Red Cross. So they're also stationed today, tomorrow, and Friday at our local state service center 8 throughout the state to try to help those who are unhoused find a safe place and a warm place to stay.
And what's the hours of those locations?
They're from 8 to 4. If you go to the DHSS website, or you can go to our social media platforms, it will list those locations. But they vary from, Adams State Service Center to Claymont State Service Center, Canby, Park location, a few others, Shipley, Smyrna, that they can go to, and it's from business hours, I would say from 8 to 4. They can get serviced and placed into a temporary setting as the conditions of the weather is very cold.
Thank you. And if anyone's listening or looking back at this, I just want to say Friendship House also does the overnight Cold Purple up here.
Yes.
In Newcastle County, both in Newark and in Wilmington area. They go back and forth between the two Wilmington areas, locations, but they're both close to the downtown area. So if you know anyone who needs help, please go to their Facebook page or their website, as well as the states for during the daytime, so people could get out of the frigid weather that we are experiencing right now. That, I believe, I have one more question, I'm sorry. My last question has to deal with the case management and the online application for it. You were saying that you don't even have to be in the same county to be working with someone.
Right.
Have you seen that there has been a barrier to the access of that because of digital literacy skills?
No, because usually they'll come into one of the partners, and the partners will help them with the assist application, and will let them know that you got to upload your stuff to this certain email, and then a worker will call them. If they don't have all the information, the worker will give them their personal, their states, like for assist is DHSS, DSS assist, but for each individual agency, it's going to be like Northeast DSS, DHSS, Delaware.gov, and they can send it directly to them. And some workers, when they talking to them, they would give them that, like me, I give them my direct email, so it could come right to me, and I can hurry up and process the benefits.
Thank you for that. I would like to recognize Councilwoman Maria Cabrera has joined us, and I think she may have a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I do have a question. When you talk about the rapid rehousing and someone is either in one of the hotels, motels, or the Hope Center in the temporary housing, how long does the rapid rehousing process take?
So with the rapid rehousing process, and this is through the Housing Alliance of Delaware, again, it's a separate entity from us, but we work directly with them via partnership. Typically, when they get placed in a program, once it becomes available, depending on the availability of the space, it depends. It can be a 45-day stay. It can be a 90-day stay. It can be past 90 days if you're at a Hope Center, placed into the Hope Center. So it really depends on the shelter, program, location. A lot of organizations work with Housing Alliance through the rapid rehousing programs such as Salvation Army, YWCA, a few others, Family Promise, that can work with those, get the funding to work with individuals to get them placed in their program. While they're in the program, temporary stay, the concept is to see, what financial literacy do they need? Do they need the employment? How can we get the funding, right? Are they using income, unearned income, or, are they employed? And then what is the available housing that's available for them? And then they would assist with, maybe a down payment assistance, first month rent assistance, pay a few months, depending on the nature of the client, to kind of keep them housed and set, so they can be able to continue to, take care of their means.
Can I do a quick follow-up, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
And then if someone has children, because I'm asking because, I keep hearing little things and I want to make sure that we're informed. Mm-hmm. Does that escalate the need for housing? Does that put them a little bit above on the list in terms of trying to get them, into a home because they have children versus, having the kids at a shelter?
Yeah. So I would say with women and children, there's more women and children shelters throughout the state, right? And then there's more funding available for those who have, families. When it comes to us at the Division of Social Service, we have TANF, Temporary Assistance for Needy Family. That's a funding source. If you have a child under the age of 18 and you have either no income or low to no income, you can qualify for that cash assistance. You do see with your housing authorities that they gravitate toward families that are in a desperate need to apply, but it kind of does vary on every client's individual situation. If they are unhoused and have nowhere to go versus if they are housed and temporarily staying with family or friends and they're seeking a permanent stay. It really depends on what organization they're dealing with. But I can say on our behalf, on Division of Social Services, we do work with our women and children to help them apply for cash assistance, food benefits, things of that nature. And if they do need temporary housing, right, and they have benefits through the state, our family support unit can work with them on getting them placed in a temporary hotel motel stay.
And one last thing, Mr. Chair, if you can indulge me,
Yes.
and only because I'm dealing with a specific situation right now and I want to get help for this person. They're in a situation where they're being abused, where they're staying. They try to find somewhere else to stay, can't really stay there because it's subsidized housing for, the parent. So couldn't stay there, ended up going back into that abusive situation. So trying to help her find a way out, like what would be the best resource for someone that's in that situation, and for me personally, that I can share with this individual?
We would direct the client to best work with Child Inc. Child Inc., they have a great program, especially dealing with DV cases, domestic violence cases, where they're able to get that individual out and placed into a place where their location is not disclosed, to support them in that housing journey. But I know with us, our referrals usually go directly with them. Depending on the nature of it, we also work with Wilmington Police Victims Service Unit. They're also able to, work with that client if it happened within the city limits, depending on placement, funding, and how they can assist that client. Also help them with the process with, getting a protective order to make sure that they are safe in the realm of, their area.
And another
Thank
thing,
you.
another
Go
thing
ahead.
about the housing is depends on the landlord. If the landlord wants you to make 3 times the amount of rent, and I'm not making 3 times the amount of rent, they ain't going to rent to me. So it's coming up with the idea, letting the landlords know that everybody don't make $5,000 a month in order to stay at the place. So somehow we got to talk to the landlords to bring that their idea down and work with the people.
Thank you so much. Excellent information, gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank y'all so much. Before you get up, I would like to open it up for public comment. If anyone had public comment for this presentation that we just heard. Please state your name.
Yes, I'm Marshall with council staff. Just one question. Considering that the Hicks Community Center is the city's only community center that the city of Wilmington owns and operate, for the CPSU unit, was there ever any consideration to have a unit at that facility?
We used to.
So one thing about the Hicks, it's actually down the street from our Porter State Service Center location. So we're always in communication with the Hicks facility. We typically go there and we advertise our flyer for people to be able to refer. We had not hosted, but we also have attended community events at the Hicks Center to kind of get the word out of what services we can provide at that location. But for the most part, I think, connecting Hicks with our Porter State Service location is, the most frequent for the west side area of the city to, seek our services.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Anyone else? Is there anyone online? No. All right. Thank y'all so much for joining us here. And I definitely look forward to reaching out to y'all to follow up on some information.
Hey,
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Up next, we will go to our presentation on climate change and extreme heat. And this will be done by Marissa McClenton, the Environmental Justice Associate Organizer for the Sierra Club Delaware chapter.
All right. Hello.
Hello.
Thank you for allowing me to come and speak. Sorry, I'm pulling this up. Is it going to be up there as well?
Yes.
Perfect. Let me get myself ready. All right. So my name is Marissa McClenton. I'm the environmental. Okay, cool. Marissa McClenton, Environmental Justice Associate Organizer for the Sierra Club Delaware chapter. A little bit about the organization. The Sierra Club is a national organization. It's the oldest grassroots environmental organization in the country. I work for the Delaware chapter. We cover the whole chapter. We have members throughout the whole chapter. Our work does skew towards Newcastle just because of population, but this is like a whole state approach. So yeah, today, if we can go to the next slide, I'm going to be touching on three main things. Number one, what is climate change? Very brief, I promise. Number two, dangers of extreme heat. Number three, how do we address it? Next slide, please. Okay, you can go to the next one. But what that other one was, and just like as I go into climate change, my personal view about climate change, I don't discuss whether it's happening or not. I think in 2025, we can all agree that it is happening. Oil and gas companies have known since the 70s, put a bunch of money into putting doubt onto it instead of addressing it. And so now here we are in 2025, climate change is here. So what is climate change? I could go on and on about it, but the things that I need people to understand, the Earth has its own systems. Earth has been going on for billions of years, and the gases in our atmosphere are at a certain level that support human life. And so we have greenhouse gases that are those warming gases that keep our temperature in the relative realm for us to exist. And we're currently putting more of those into the atmosphere, which is then heating up our planet. People used to call it global warming. Now we call it climate change. I'm fine with either. They say the same thing. The main thing is we cannot continue putting greenhouse gases into the atmosphere without pushing ourselves out of the limit for human life to be comfortable and successful. Every other time in the course of the Earth's history, every time we have these rapid warming periods, there's a mass extinction. I don't want mass extinction. I know y'all don't want mass extinction. I know the world does not want mass extinction, but that is the kind of severity of the issue. Sources of emissions here in Delaware. So this screenshot is from DENREC's Climate Action Plan. There was a lot of public engagement that happened on it the past year. We were engaged in the process, public was engaged in the process, and at the bottom we have their main sources of emissions here in Delaware, and these pretty much track for the whole world, the whole country. First is our electricity. Where are we getting our electricity from? What powers our lights? Especially in the United States, a majority of that is fossil fuels and fossil gas. So methane, people call it renewable natural gas, that's just methane. Methane is a greenhouse gas. Coal, all of that good stuff. We want to transition to renewable energy to reduce that. Second, we have transportation. Usually comes in around 2 or 3 globally of emission sources. We drive cars that are mainly powered by gas. The main issue of that is that we all drive cars, not that they're fueled with gas, but the 2 main points about climate change with the transportation is we should be able to get around without needing a car, but if we do need to have a car, it should preferably not be a gas-powered car. Then we have all the other causes that kind of get lumped in at the end. Next one, please. So climate change science is very, very intense. It has a wide range of issues that touch literally every single part of our lives. The 3 main things that I want people to understand is these up here are the 3 ways that climate change is going to impact Delaware the most. So we're going to get an increase in frequency and intensity of rainfall. So it's going to rain more often and it's going to rain harder. We've seen through hurricanes and stuff like that, Hurricane Ida came through Wilmington, what the dangers of the intensity of rainfall happening when you're pouring in inches and inches of water, the earth cannot suck it up, then you get flooding. Number 2, this seems crazy to talk about right now in general since it's snowing outside, but an increase in frequency and intensity of heat events. So not only is it going to get hotter, but it's going to get way hotter, way quicker, more often. So those heat waves that used to happen once every other year, they're now happening 3-4 times a year by the time we hit 2100. That's the kind of situation we're hitting. Number 3 is sea level rise and expansion. That is like a general issue for Delaware. One point I want to make on this is whenever I say sea level rise in Delaware, folks think, okay, I don't live by the beach. The coast goes all the way up our state. And so when we say sea level rise, the ocean, I put expansion here, it's literally going to be just covering more land than it did previously. And so Wilmington is by no means exempt from sea level rise. It is one of the biggest risk factors since Wilmington already floods as a city. So next slide, please. So climate change. One important part about climate change is it's the rate of the warming. And so the video that didn't play, it shows how the planet has warmed, and you can pretty much put up the Industrial Revolution when we started burning kind of fuels in these industrial plants. That rate is basically like a straight up line when you look on kind of like a geological time scale. We have greenhouse gases, and one thing that we like to have folks take away from this is that business as usual got us into this. Business as usual cannot get us out. We are going to need to restructure things like our transportation system, things like our housing system. What does our economy look like? What are the industries that we are favorable towards? All that kind of stuff is going to need to be rethought in the face of climate change. And then lastly, this is the part that I am most interested in because I do environmental justice work as a career, but low-income communities and communities of color are going to be the most impacted and are currently the most impacted by climate change, despite having the least amount of responsibility for it. So we know that globally, and even in the US and even in the state, the people that are emitting the most greenhouse gases, they're not you and I. They are like kind of that top 1%. But that does not mean that we don't have an obligation to address climate change here in our state and in our cities. Next slide, please. So with that, I do want to talk about extreme heat. The main point with extreme heat, like I said before, heat waves are going to become hotter, longer, and more frequent. Next slide, please. So it seems a bit surprising when you think about it, but extreme heat is the deadliest impact of climate change, which doesn't really make sense because a lot of these other things seem really scary, like sea level rise, flooding. They seem very like catastrophic, but extreme heat for humans is the deadliest impact. Makes thousands of people sick each and every year. Our most at-risk groups, we have our children, people that work outside, our elderly, people that live in cities. We're in Wilmington right now, so the citizens of the city of Wilmington. And folks with certain medication underlying conditions are most at risk. And so what that generally means is our aging populations, our disabled populations, our children, it really is a wide group of people that are sensitive, and folks don't really, that's not like second nature to assume that like, oh, I'm susceptible to extreme heat. But even when we look at coming out of the COVID pandemic, folks' bodies have been kind of overcome by this virus that impacts how our bodies function. I'm expecting to see some stuff come out in the coming years about COVID and risk of extreme heat. Another thing that seems a bit kind of like not obvious is that the risk for extreme heat sickness is highest after it gets cool. So we've seen even right now, it was not this cold last week. Like the weather is fluctuating, and it has been for a while. But if you have kind of a 65, 70 week, and then the next week it's 80, 90, that kind of increase of heat is what we see puts more folks in the hospital because our bodies are able to adapt over time. Like if it's 60 degrees in the spring, 60 degrees in the fall, those are very different things that our body is feeling. Extreme heat hits our bodies in the same way. Sorry about that. So during extreme heat events, one thing that we see is more people go to the emergency room just in general, but also more children get to the emergency room. We have more people that have mental health episodes and more violence. There was a study that came out a couple years ago that looked at violence in extreme heat and tied it to tree cover. I'll get to that in a little bit. But it's putting a really huge strain on our medical systems during these heat wave events because folks are getting sent there more and more because our bodies are really, really sensitive. And lastly, households running air conditioner at the same time puts a strain on our electricity grid. That we've seen the impacts of that. If you think a couple years back in Texas when they had that big freeze, a lot of people putting their heat or their AC on at the same time strains the grid. And if that grid fails, Now none of us have AC. And so that's kind of like the disaster-ish preparedness thing, but that's just an advocacy point for how we need to strengthen our grid for these extreme weather events. Next slide, please. So I think in 2023, within the last 2 years, there was a group called Kappa Heat Watch that partnered with community organizations in Wilmington, and they literally drove around the city with these heat sensors on their cars and measured the temperature variance as they drove through different parts of the city. And so just gonna make this make a little sense. The blue, that's those kind of forested parts. This is like generally Wilmington, goes a little bit up to Claymont. Does it? Yeah. And so those hot parts, those red parts, that's the city of Wilmington, where you have a lot of concrete, a lot of just like infrastructure things that really bring the heat up. This is the morning and the afternoon, and the scale is different. So on the left, the scale is from 62 to 71. The one on the right is 79 to 90. That heat difference, 79 to 90, that's the same day, same time of day. And you can literally drive from that blue part to that red part, get out of your car, and you can feel it's like a 10 to 11 per like temperature difference. That is huge for our bodies, especially when we have the scales of extreme heat go from like 70 to 80, 80 to 90. That 10 degrees could push you from being like, oh, this is a caution day, to this is now an extreme risk to our health. And we call this the urban heat island effect, the fact that cities radiate heat, they absorb the heat. There's a lot of blacktop, a lot of concrete, as opposed to like if you step on grass on a summer day, it's cooling. There's shade under trees. We know that's an inequitable experience, having shade trees and green spaces in your neighborhood. So this is a really good resource for a really understanding heat. There's a lot of really good organizations that were involved in doing it. And it really shows the disparity between who experiences heat even at the same time, same day, in the same city. Next one, please. So before I get into the potential paths forward, one point that I really want to make is that extreme heat folks have been looking at for years. And there are organizations in Wilmington and in the state that have been looking at this for a very long time. We do not have to start from scratch. There's a lot of really good work already being done. I think the first step should just be touching with the folks that are doing that, seeing what they think should be done. But a couple of potential paths forwards really to address extreme heat as this like huge issue. Number one is looking at the CDC's heat risk forecasts. There are different ways to tell extreme heat. There are some that you can't just go off temperature, because as we know, humidity is really what does it sometimes. I used to live in Arizona. It was regularly 100 degrees. I would take that over like an 85, 70 plus humidity. It is just a lot. And if we can use those forecast tools effectively, we can then better tell folks and tell our great community partners, like just spoke before this, to get the word out to their people about, hey, maybe if you're going to run a mile outside today, maybe do that on a treadmill. Like that kind of decisions, people need to have the information about the risk, the heat risk in the moment. Number two, I've loved seeing these in the past couple of years, but establishing a network of cooling centers for our folks who are unhoused, our elderly or unhoused, making sure that they're located in areas where people would actually use them and like where it's easy to get to for the people who are the targets for this, making sure they have cooling and hydration. Number three, and this is a really solution for a lot of climate change things, but we just need to engage within fun local spaces. So folks have places to go, not just during heat events, but in general. That can be cooling centers and raise awareness and kind of pop up when we need them to be. Another one, collaborating with community health centers. Our health workers are one of the biggest kind of defenses we have against illness or death from extreme heat. And so partnering with them with our existing kind of social infrastructure networks to make sure we're getting the word out about the impacts of extreme heat, because it really is more than just I'm hot. Our bodies really do deal with this in very different ways. Next slide, please. So another one, and this is from an environmentalist standpoint, one of my favorite extreme heat defense mechanisms is looking at our tree canopy goals. So trees are such a good defense against extreme heat. So trees do this thing where they release water vapor out into the atmosphere. And so they create their own kind of climate outside of themselves. And that's why if you go into a part of the city, where it has a lot of forest cover, a lot of grass, it is cooler. It's not just the shade, it's what the tree is doing to the atmosphere itself. So it cleans up the air. There's this particulate matter that it's pulling out of the air. It makes the air cleaner and it makes areas cooler. And so we really need to start prioritizing tree plantings in these most vulnerable spaces, but it can't just be we put the trees in. Like, we know folks are going to hate that. It's not a good plan. It needs to be a collaborative effort of showing folks what the importance of trees is, but also helping them take care of them, because trees do need care, and we can't just throw them in places and then walk away. So it really needs to be a very intentional effort, and I know that folks are already working on that right now to figure out what that looks like for Wilmington. That has a lot of really good tree cover already compared to other cities, but we can do more to really get at that 9 to 11 degree difference that I showed you in the slides before. Number two, from an environmental standpoint, environmental justice standpoint, is one of the best things that like regular citizens can do, but it's creating care systems where citizens are encouraged to check on their neighbors. And so one thing that we see too often during heat events is you have our elderly folks who just, no one checked on them. When you get to them, they didn't have water, their AC broke. We've seen people with no AC in their houses, like shutting their windows. They didn't want people to get in. Like those kind of things, community level relationships can help them. And so it's as simple as, I have an elderly man who lives across from me. His name is Rodney. And when it gets hot, I'm making sure that I have eyes on him every single day when we have those heat events. The city can play a role in creating those care systems, but that can also be something that community members themselves are just making an effort to do, because we are all neighbors in this world. Thirdly, is investing in programs including weatherizations and white roofs. So white roofs is a very popular heat mitigation strategy, which is literally just painting roofs white. And so black absorbs heat, radiates it back, and it's like really hot. White reflects it, and so it just is not as hot. And so we have a lot of roofs that are with black, and so that's all absorbing that heat, and it's making those places hotter. White roof programs are a pretty easy way to really just lower that. Native plant landscaping, increasing access to air conditioning is a huge one. I'm anticipating as the world starts to get hotter, us to looking more at air conditioning as a human right to kind of go all the way there. But there is just not a really solid way that we can ensure people are safe during these events if they don't have AC or access to AC. That should be the long-term plan, making sure that they can exist in their homes during these heat events. Next is subsidy programs for summer electricity bills. Y'all can all imagine what an electricity bill is going to be if you're having these heat events back to back to back, where you're regularly having to put it down lower and lower. And some folks can't handle that. And so we don't want them to have to make the choice between, do I put on my AC or do I just try and wait it out? We don't want folks to take that risk if it's unnecessary. We can start to look at subsidy programs for electricity bills or even low income rates, like are kind of hinted at in our state energy plan. Next is increasing access to clean water. Had to put this in here. I should be able to go down the street and drink water from a water fountain. I shouldn't have to jump into a business and buy a bottle of water. If we increase the access, it makes folks more hydrated, just like a very simple way to just make folks healthier. And then lastly is creating an extreme heat response plan, making it in collaboration with community members, with the community, with scientists, all of that good stuff, to make sure that we know what happens when the heat wave hits, not that we're in the heat wave and we're saying, what are we gonna do? I want that to be figured out before that kind of hits the fan. Next slide, please. So yes, lastly, the main big point is that we need education, collaboration, and policy measures so we can minimize illness and fatality as a result of extreme heat. It's a huge issue. There is not an easy solution. But if we can do these three things, I'm pretty confident we can figure this out. Next slide. Special thanks to three people, Alan Greenglass, Shweta Arya, and Jamila Davey. I don't do anything by myself, and they were a huge help. And just looking at, if I only have 10 minutes, what's the information that I want to get to y'all the quickest? And yeah, with that, next slide. Next slide, please. Thank you. Okay, that is all for me. If you have any questions, my email is up here. I have business cards with me. They have my number. You can give me a call at any time.
Thank you so much. First off, I just want to say Jamila is actually here in the room as well too. So again, thank you. Both of you for this presentation. I will open it up to members of the committee. Is there any questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Go ahead.
No, thank you. Great presentation. You mentioned low-income communities of color are the most vulnerable despite being the least responsible cause of climate change. Do you have any solutions on that? I'm pretty sure you do, but I guess I'd like to hear it.
I have a lot of ideas. There's a whole movement behind it. And so environmental justice as a topic, we often think of just in terms of pollution, which is a really big thing, that those same groups are also more likely to be exposed to pollution and other hazards. But the main thing is just this kind of restorative justice framework, which is whenever we're looking at solutions for climate change, we need to make sure that those folks are taken care of first and foremost. And that should be kind of our main focus in like fixing the problem. And so we've seen a lot of things. Justice 40, Representative Larry Lambert created Delaware's Justice 40. Those kind of programs that unfortunately on the federal level have been just erased this week. Those kind of programs where we're saying we're going to put a lot more effort into these specific communities is really what does it. A lot of my role at the Sierra Club is making sure that when we're doing these kind of broad climate policy initiatives, that I'm talking to people and saying, do you feel represented in this solution? And so it's really just lies on advocates and decision makers like yourself to make sure that you are not just seeking solutions that only help a certain population that's easiest. And that's really the thing. It means that climate action has to be hard and has to be sometimes inconvenient in order for us to get at the kind of truth of the matter, which is that the folks who need the help most might be the hardest to get it. So it's really a mindset thing in my eyes. There are most of the things that I talked about in the proposed solutions would kind of help those most impacted people most, because that is the framework that I come into this work with. But it's really just a thing to keep in the back of your mind of like, who is this serving? Is it kind of the image that we all have an environmentalist from the 70s, or is it the people in our neighborhoods right now who are most impacted by these things?
Chairman, can I have a follow-up?
Yes, you can.
All right, so you also talked about the space in where we need more trees. I will say, on my block, they had to take down about 3 or 4 trees only because of how it was growing up from the sidewalks, was causing some damage. So is there any specific tree that would be best fit to be able to go back and plant?
I don't have the answer for that, but I do know, just in conversations with people, is that when I said that like we can't do business as usual, if we're really serious about tree plantings, we are going to have to rethink kind of our sidewalk to road ratio, species of trees. Most trees have like a miniature version, so a lot of things that you see in cities are like built for cities. There are people that know a lot more about trees than I do that can answer that. But yeah, you can't just throw like a maple in there and expect it to grow. If you hire an arborist to do it, they will know the best tree for the job.
I think the city is still looking for an arborist. You have another question?
Thank you so much. I truly appreciate it.
Of course.
All right. Councilwoman Christian Wilholler.
I just wanted to thank you very much for the presentation. I know I learned a lot, and I really appreciate you highlighting these issues, especially around the heat being such an important part of what we're facing as a city. And I know that, you know, there are some really hot days, and just the advice that you had of checking in your neighbors is really important, and I'm going to remember to do that. But I also, you know, look forward to working with you on policies that you brought up. You know, you brought up kind of ideas, general ideas for policies, but I think there's opportunities to take those general ideas and make sure that we put the new policies into place. So I know I, for one, and, you know, I think some other people on this committee are interested in continuing to work with you and look forward to hearing your ideas about what Wilmington can do to protect our vulnerable citizens and also to make our neighborhoods places where, you know, it's comfortable to live and comfortable in every neighborhood, and people are safe from these impacts of climate change that you were describing tonight. So I'm looking forward to working with you. I hope this is just the beginning. Thank you.
Yeah, I hope so as well.
Thank you for that. Councilwoman Maria Cabrera.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, I want to say excellent presentation. It's a great simple way for people to understand what is going on without all the extra that folks don't understand. So I appreciate you for putting that in a plain and simple language that people can understand. Now, I have been working with Michelle Roberts, Larry Lambert, Justice 40, the whole shebang. I'm part of the E&J movement. So it's been years and years that we've been at this. One thing that stuck with me that you talked about on what we can do here in our reach is this trees. When I go into these neighborhoods, I hear people complaining about the trees, all the sidewalk, all the leaves, all the messes. They don't get it. And actually, you didn't even elaborate on that study that was done, how neighborhoods that are cooler, they have less crime, the neighborhoods that have the most tree canopy. And that's probably for the reasons that you stated. People are not as irritable. You know, it affects them physically, emotionally, mentally, you know, not just in ways that can get them sick, but in ways that irritate them to the point that there's more, you know, there's more discord among folks. So that was a study that's out there too, that neighborhoods with more tree canopy actually have lower crime levels. So I think that one of the things that maybe we can do as council members is work together to come up with a plan with really the greening of Wilmington, partnering with, you know, some of our partners like Horticulture Center, and obviously getting an arborist would be great to have someone here that could really work with that. But you made some excellent points. We really need to educate people about these points and the extreme changes. When you talked about the utility bill, you know, some folks have to pick and choose between keeping their home cool, some cases even keeping their homes warm. I went into shock today when I saw my electric bill, and that's before this week of cold weather. So it is very difficult for folks. But let's, you know, really sit down and maybe see the council members that are interested in this, how we can come up with a plan moving forward. And then when you talked about that lawsuit that's in place against, well, actually, you didn't talk about the lawsuit, but there is a lawsuit, and that's happening right now. We had the representatives come to speak to me and Councilmember Bracey, and we're actually their point person here. So I welcome to get more council members involved on how we're going after the energy companies, because they knew and they were very much aware of what would happening with the greenhouse gases and the warming of America, and they just ignored it. So they knew all along. So it might take 10 years before we win it or something happens, but this is going to be very similar to the tobacco lawsuits. You know, there's money to be brought into communities so that we can have better greening programs. So I'm interested in all of the things that you said, because some of these seem like they could be basic, simple solutions, but most importantly, to educate our community and get everybody on board, especially in a neighborhood when we're trying to plant a tree, to really get that buy-in so folks help take care of the tree. So thank you very much for coming, and thank you, Mr. Chair, for bringing her in, and Jamila and the whole gang that worked on this. Really, really appreciate you. Looking forward to working together.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? I would just like to say, one, again, amazing presentation. I know how much work and dedication went into this. And like the other said, I definitely look forward to working with y'all on creating a greener and more environmentally friendly city, especially for our vulnerable communities. As we talk about heat and we talk about the extreme weather as well too, we just had to stay here and we talked about the warming stations with this extreme cold that we're experiencing right now. But we do know 2024 was the hottest year that we have seen. You talked about cooling shelters. I know that there's a few in the city. Do you know of like where do we stand as a city when it comes to the network of that and accessibility for individuals to get there, right? So we can have centers all day long, but if they're not in the communities that truly need them, or if a senior cannot get to those type of facilities, are they being best utilized? So in your opinion, where are we at with that and how we can bridge that gap?
Yeah. I don't know the numbers. I would assume that any action that we would do would start with taking stock of that. But I do also know that specifically Delaware's First Resilience Hub and Delaware Interfaith Power and Light, they would be the two folks that would know kind of where they are. And I've talked with folks from Delaware Interfaith Power and Light and even Alan Greenglass, and that is top of mind and making sure that they're connected to the folks that really need them the most. And so I don't know the numbers off the top of my head. I can get those to you. But those are the two groups that would really have like an idea of how many there are. But any effort that we would do should look at first what are the ones that exist, and then.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chair, may I just add something real quick?
Yes.
Our chief of police, he might be aware of the locations, and I guess that sometimes the locations change, but I know that during extreme heat events, he went out along with his team to places like Christina Park, where a huge, homeless community would gather, and they went out there to pick people up and offer to take them to the cooling stations. And sadly enough, out of the group of people that were there at the park, as he shared with me, because I was calling him at the same time, only 3 people chose to go to the cooling station. The other half a dozen decided to remain in the park, so they gave them cold water. But the chief may know where they are, and we are currently doing that. So that's one thing that I'm very happy that as soon as this happens, our emergency response team gets out there in the community and they start looking for the places, especially where the people who are unhoused gather, to make sure that they're getting the resources that they need, as they're doing now, looking for people that are out in the street in this extreme weather and taking them to places where they can find shelter.
Thank you for that, Council President.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Are there any numbers, like regarding climate change, are there any numbers that can help us realize how serious it is? Like, for example, 10 years ago, what was the average summer temperature versus now versus what we predict in the future?
I'm trying to think if I know any numbers. The kind of ones that I use to communicate most is one of the ones that Chair said is that 2024 was the hottest year on record. Mm-hmm. We also know that in 2024 we broke, if you look at climate change, we talk about 1.5 degrees Celsius, which is kind of the threshold that scientists in the International Panel of Climate Change Scientists, the IPCC, this like global organization, put as like the target. We blew past that in 2024. Mm-hmm. And so numbers is really tough because there's a lot of things that go into it. But I know that just anecdotally is really what I communicate to folks a lot. So I know people that like I have grown up with who in their own towns have seen kind of ponds they had in their neighborhoods that used to freeze over every single year in like the 80s and that now don't freeze over at all. And so we can see those changes to our environment. I've seen them in the about 15 years that I've been in Delaware. Numbers wise, I can get them to you, but we have an estimate of how much Delaware stands to lose for climate change. I'm not going to say the number because I don't want to fudge it up, but it's like ridiculously huge. Because it really does impact everything from having to repave our roads more often to having to rebuild buildings as the foundations shift and looking at where we're getting our water and what is our water infrastructure. Like all those costs really go into it. But temperature-wise, that 1.5 degrees Celsius, which isn't even in Fahrenheit, I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, and that's like the average temperature. And so things are getting hotter. And when you look at kind of our plants and our animals, they're meant for like a temperature range that we're pushing ourselves out of. So yeah, unfortunately, I'm not a real big like statistic person with climate change because we've all experienced just like in our general lives the changing. Like it's noticeably hotter. Right. You could have worn capris in December this past year. Like that is not normal for Delaware.
All right. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And that quick math is 34.7 degrees Fahrenheit.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so that's hot. That is hot. But as we talk about this, and I know the state is still here as well too, one of the things you brought up was Hurricane Ida. And some of us in the room was over there when the flooding went down and saw the impact that it had on the communities, especially over in the Northeast Boulevard area. And again, that's not the area I represent, but it's still an area in Wilmington. And I know if we keep going down this route, flooding is going to be more common here. And I just really want to bring that into perspective, right? So we, as a city, have invested millions into the riverfront. We have built wetlands as well, too, right? All that will be washed away if we do not really start making a difference in how we are dealing with climate change, not only here but throughout this nation. So I think it's going to be extremely important for us as a city to sit down and really come together with our strong allies in the community who are the boots on the ground, who are talking to the residents, but then also making sure that we have residents who have been on the front line of the impact of climate change, right, around the table as well, too, to talk about what truly are the wraparound services they need and come up with a plan as a city to really do this. So, again, I am so happy that you put in here, create a extreme heat response plan. And I know there are a lot of individuals in this city who would love to work with you on that, including myself. But now what I'm going to do, I'm going to open it up to public comment. And is there anyone in the room that would like to give public comment? Yes. Please just state your name and what organization you're with, if you're with one.
Hi, everyone. I'm Camila Davey, and I am a resident where the 5th and 7th districts come together, and with a group called Green for the Greater Good. And I want to thank the committee for inviting Marissa and for her amazing presentation and her work in the community. I've learned so much from her over the past few years. Green for the Greater Good is a community group that sprung up around when the Rodney Reservoir, was facing private development, and we, and it's been a learning journey that we've learned so much that, we have a lot to share with y'all about that. But, because at the moment that spot was being chosen for private development, for housing, for high-end housing, we heard, and it was already a green space, had always been and never been developed, our neighborhood immediately said, this is a valuable green mountain in our neighborhood where we garden together, and could do more, but please don't take it away. All your planning documents say we need more green space. We need contiguous green space. This is the densest part of Delaware. We're in the Rodney Reservoir does fall in some of those, in the EJ screen areas and all that kind of stuff too. And we have, we're at the boundary of a bunch of neighborhoods where there is disparity in the canopy and things like that. And, immediately to a person in our neighborhood, we knew that this was an asset that we needed to preserve. So I'm here, so one big message is to underscore what the chairman said here, Councilmember Owens, that it's imperative that we involve our community members and our community organizations, and shout out to some of our other council members on the phone too. I remember learning at a community EJ conference this year that, communities know what they need. And I want to say that to so many of these questions, that we have to think, I'm going to use the philosophy word, dialectic. We have got to think dialectically, that there is indeed information that our residents need about what extreme heat is going to mean to us. But there's also a bunch of listening that needs to occur as well, because residents know best what vulnerabilities they're experiencing and what solutions are going to work for them. And we have been talking to people about trees. So we started with the Rodney Reservoir, which our community, advocated around many avenues to make it into a nature and community focused park. And that's something that came out of community design work that the University of Delaware helped us do before the city of Wilmington was really willing to work with us or talk to us about it. We've come a long way. We're going to get this park. The city of Wilmington got on board and is building an amazing park. We're planting 300 trees, native trees on that site in central Wilmington. And we have a vision of this site being, I'm going to run out of time, a place where we can do programming that further activates. But we have, beyond that, we learned the power of communities being involved in designing neighborhood spaces and to be involved in planning. And I want to say that the Resilient Wilmington report is that lacks that. And we saw in the mayor's transition plan that he wants to bring that back out and look at the stormwater and issues in that bill, in that plan. But I want to ask this committee to think about how we can get the community engaged at the ground level to make sure any planning for resiliency remains mapped to community priorities so that we can make sure, because that report says that waterfront development is the most important thing. And on the final page, it gets to urban heat island effect. And it's just, and we have to look at to make sure that the investments we're making in these measures also bring economic benefit to our communities. And there's just so much to learn. I learn more every day. I was just looking at how the canopy maps to redlining, how the canopy inadequacies map to neighborhoods who were redlined in the past. And so we see like historic disinvestment has been a cause of the current disparities that we see. So there's a lot of reasons to get to work at that, and we need to answer to our residents, even as we educate. Thank you for letting me go over.
Of course. Thank you so much.
Perfect.
Is there any other individual interested in public comment? Is there anyone online? No. All right. I'll take it back to the committee members. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Did any of the committee members have any last minute comments?
I do. Thank you so much for coming and speaking. It takes the courage, and once again, that's a great start for our community to come in and speak with us. So thank you so much for coming today. We truly appreciate it.
Council President?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to congratulate you for just an excellent committee meeting. It's your first one that you're chairing. So great job. I'm really looking forward to this committee doing a lot, bringing a lot of information to our community. So great job.
Thank you so much. With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Oh, second.
So moved.
My bad. I make the
It's been
motion.
properly motion.
Second.
It's been properly second. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those who
Aye.
want to say nay. The ayes have it. We're adjourned.